what if the reason your life feels stuck has nothing to do with luck, talent, or timing, and everything to do with what you do in the first 10 minutes of your day? Think about that. Every morning you wake up with a choice, but most people don't realize it. They reach for their phone, scroll without thinking, and hand their power over before they even open their eyes fully. And then they wonder why their day feels heavy, why the spark is gone, why life just feels like one long loop they can't break out of. But here's the truth. It's not the big moves that change your life. It's the small ones, the quiet ones, the ones no one sees but you. You don't need a miracle. You don't need to overhaul everything in one night. You need something deeper than that. Consistency, discipline, intention. Those things sound simple, but they're powerful. Because once you understand how much control you actually have over your day, your mind, your energy, everything begins to shift. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being deliberate. And that starts with waking up each day and choosing differently, choosing with clarity, not habit. There's something you need to hear right now. Your life is not meant to feel like survival. You're not here just to get through it. You're here to build something that reflects who you really are when the fear is quiet and the noise fades away. That version of you, it's not waiting at the top of some mountain. It's hiding in your daily actions. It's sitting in the moment when you decide to rise, to move, to act, when no one's watching, and you do it anyway. That's where transformation begins. And it's smaller than you think. What if everything changed by doing one small thing differently today? What if the life you dream about isn't out of reach? It's just buried beneath routine, hesitation, and a lack of belief. But that belief, you can build it. Slowly, deliberately, one step at a time. You don't have to see the entire path right now. You just need to take the first step with enough courage to trust that it matters. Stay with this until the end. Because by the time we're done, you won't just understand how to change your life. You'll feel ready to do it. No more waiting, no more hoping. This is about action. You'll walk away with habits that seem small on the surface but carry the force to shift your direction entirely. If you've ever felt like you were meant for more, you were right. And the way to unlock that life isn't through motivation. It's through small, quiet, repeated acts of discipline. And that's what we're diving into. And by the end, you won't just want change. You'll know exactly how to create it. Starting now. Your mind is a battlefield. And the most important war you will ever fight is the one between your old patterns and your future self. That war is silent, invisible. It's fought in the choices no one sees, the ones that seem too small to matter. But they do, because every time you repeat the same thought, the same excuse, the same behavior, you cast a vote for the person you no longer want to be. And every time you do something new, even if it's hard, even if it's uncomfortable, you cast a vote for the future you say you want. That's how change begins. Not with a speech, not with motivation, with a vote, with a habit, with a choice. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself. It listens to what you do more than what you say. So if your actions keep reinforcing doubt, distraction, and delay, your brain learns that. It accepts it. It builds walls around it. But if you start feeding it something new, even something small, an early wake up, a quiet pause, a single goal written down, it begins to shift. It begins to believe, because you're no longer just thinking about the life you want. You're building it, one step at a time. This is where most people give up. They believe the change should feel dramatic. They think transformation has to come with fireworks. But real change? It's quiet. It's often boring. It happens when no one claps. It happens in the moments when you feel tired but still show up. When you feel fear but still move forward. These are the moments that sculpt your character. These are the moments where your future is formed, piece by piece, in the dark. You don't need to wait for life to force you to change. You don't need to hit rock bottom to wake up. You just need to stop lying to yourself about how powerless you are. You're not stuck because of your circumstances. You're stuck because of what you've decided to tolerate. And the moment you choose to raise your standards, everything begins to shift. Not because the world changes, but because you do. And that shift doesn't require a new environment, or a new job, or a new version of you that feels perfect. It requires one habit, one act, one vote in a new direction. The reason most people never change is because they're addicted to comfort. But comfort is a slow death. It promises peace and delivers regret. You were not made for comfort. You were made for growth, for fire, for progress. And that starts by choosing something small you can do every single day. Something that reflects the future you believe in, even if it feels far away. Your life will change when your daily actions start honoring your potential more than your fear. That's the shift. And it starts now. Every single day, your habits are casting a vote for the life you will live tomorrow. And that means you're never really standing still. You're either building momentum toward the life you want, or you're reinforcing the one you're desperate to escape. There is no neutral. Every small action is shaping you. Every choice, every thought, every routine is either helping you rise or silently pulling you down. This is why the small things matter more than anyone ever told you, because they don't just shape your day, they shape your identity. And once you realize that, everything changes. You stop waiting for the big moment. You start showing up for the small ones. The way you start your morning, the way you talk to yourself, the way you respond to discomfort. These are the foundations of your future. Most people underestimate these moments. They think brushing off one day won't matter. They tell themselves they'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow is nothing more than a reflection of what you choose today. If you want to change your life, you must begin by honoring the power of one decision, repeated with purpose. That's how discipline is built. That's how confidence is grown. Not in one giant leap, but in the consistency of small intentional acts that realign your life with your vision. And let's be honest, some days you won't feel like it. You'll feel tired. You'll feel lost. You'll feel like nothing is working. But that is the exact moment your breakthrough is being tested. Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient, but when everything in you wants to quit and you choose to move anyway. That's how strength is born. That's how momentum is built. You won't always feel motivated. You won't always feel ready. But readiness is a myth. Discipline is what builds the life you crave. And discipline begins with the tiniest habits you repeat daily, even when no one's watching, even when you're the only one who knows you showed up. When you choose one small habit, just one, and repeat it with intention, something powerful begins to happen. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to believe that maybe you are capable. Maybe you are consistent. Maybe this time will be different. And that belief, it changes how you show up for everything else. You're not just brushing your teeth, or writing one goal, or taking a 10-minute walk. You're declaring to your mind, I follow through. That identity shift is everything. Because once you see yourself as someone who shows up, who doesn't break promises to themselves, your entire self-image starts to elevate. You stop chasing change and start embodying it. This is how transformation becomes permanent. Not through pressure, but through practice. Not through force, but through alignment. The life you want is built in layers, and each habit is a brick. Keep laying them down one by one until your foundation is unshakable. The life you dream of is already possible. You just have to keep building it. There is a version of you who never hits snooze on their life, who wakes up with fire in their eyes and purpose in their heart. That version isn't some distant fantasy. It's you, stripped of distraction, rebuilt through repetition, strengthened by the decision to stop waiting and start becoming. You don't need to wait for perfect conditions. You don't need to be ready. You need to start, because clarity comes through action. Confidence is born through effort. And identity, it's shaped by every small promise you keep to yourself. When you commit to one small habit, just one, it creates a ripple. Not just in your routine, but in your belief system. Your mind begins to adapt. It sees the new evidence you're feeding it. It learns that you are capable of follow-through, that you do what you say. And when that becomes your truth, the old stories lose their grip. You stop identifying with the version of you that quits early, that doubts, that makes excuses. Instead, you rise as someone who moves forward, no matter how small the step. That shift is everything. Because your habits don't just shape your behavior, they shape your identity. And identity determines destiny. You have to understand this. The life you're building is a mirror of your patterns, not your dreams, not your potential, but your patterns. What you do consistently becomes who you are permanently. That's why you can't afford to overlook the small things. Because the small things are the only things that truly scale. Waiting for a breakthrough will keep you stuck. Building your way forward, habit by habit, will set you free. And freedom is what you're really after. Freedom from overthinking, freedom from regret, freedom from the guilt of watching days pass while doing nothing to change them. That freedom begins with discipline, not harsh, punishing discipline, but compassionate discipline, the kind that says, I respect myself enough to choose better, even when it's hard. You can't change your life overnight, but you can change your direction in an instant. And once you shift your direction, even slightly, and keep walking that path, you will end up somewhere completely different. The problem is never your ambition, it's the lack of structure around it. Ambition without systems becomes frustration. But ambition fueled by habits? That's unstoppable. That's where the real transformation begins. And that transformation doesn't feel loud. It feels quiet, peaceful, solid. It feels like waking up and knowing exactly what to do. Because you've wired your life around who you want to become, not what you feel in the moment. You've done hard things before. You've survived every dark day. This time, you don't need to survive. You need to build. Start with the smallest shift. Stay loyal to it. Let that loyalty become your proof. And when doubt returns, which it will, return to action. Because action rewrites every lie your fear tries to tell you. Stay in motion. Keep showing up. Build the life your soul has been asking for. One habit, one moment, one day at a time. Most people don't fail because they lack desire. They fail because they haven't created systems that support their future self. Willpower is limited. Motivation fades. But structure, that's what holds you together when everything else breaks down. And the structure starts with your habits, the way you think, the way you move, the way you begin and end each day. These are the anchors that keep you grounded when the chaos hits. These are the quiet, consistent choices that separate those who drift from those who rise. It's never about how badly you want it. It's about how consistently you act like it. You can't keep living in a cycle of hope followed by hesitation, of planning without execution, of waiting for clarity while ignoring the one thing that gives you clarity: action. At some point you must accept that the life you're waiting for won't arrive through thought alone. It must be built. And it's built through doing the hard things when no one's watching, through choosing the uncomfortable option, through training your mind to stay focused on growth when your emotions scream for comfort. Because comfort will seduce you into wasting your potential, but discipline will pull you through the fire and reveal who you really are underneath all that fear. Every time you repeat a small positive action, your brain changes. Literally, new pathways form, old patterns weaken, and this is where transformation becomes real, not imagined, not visualized, real. When you stop negotiating with your excuses and start building unshakable routines, you stop being at the mercy of your feelings. You rise above them. You lead them. You stop being reactive and become deliberate. That's what it means to take back your life. To decide that your future is worth more than your temporary mood. To move forward even when it's messy, even when it's slow. Because forward is still forward. Your progress will not always be obvious. Some days it'll feel invisible. But that doesn't mean it's not happening. Growth is quiet in the beginning. It works in the background. It builds silently, like water carving through stone, not with force, but with persistence. And if you keep going, if you stay loyal to the process, you'll look back one day and realize the person you used to be no longer exists. That person who doubted, who quit, who broke promises to themselves. They'll be gone, replaced by someone powerful, someone intentional, someone who built a new life through daily alignment, not sudden breakthroughs. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be committed. There will be setbacks. There will be days where your energy is low, your focus is scattered, your doubts feel louder than your drive. But none of that disqualifies you. What matters is that you show up anyway. You push through anyway. You make the choice again. Because every time you do, you reinforce a truth that becomes your foundation. You are in control now. You are building something unshakable. And this is how your new life begins. By not backing down when it gets hard, but rising every time it does. The world doesn't owe you clarity, it rewards consistency. And if you keep waiting for life to feel easier before you begin, you'll miss your moment. Growth doesn't happen when it's convenient. It happens when you lean into resistance, when you choose discipline over distraction, when you stop waiting for the right mindset and start building it. You build it every time you act without permission from fear. You build it every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small. That's how mental strength is formed. Not in dramatic victories, but in quiet repetitions that no one sees but you. You have to train your mind to stop chasing intensity and start respecting consistency. Because the truth is, habits are what carry you when motivation disappears. And it will disappear. That's not weakness, that's biology. But the advantage is yours when you build systems that don't rely on how you feel. When you anchor your day with actions that are aligned with your values, not your mood, that's when real freedom begins. Because you no longer live at the mercy of what's happening around you. You operate from within, with clarity, with control, with quiet confidence. The habit of starting, no matter how you feel, is one of the most powerful things you can develop. It's not about doing it all at once. It's about beginning, again and again, every single day. You won't always feel ready. You won't always feel strong. But if you start, you'll tap into a deeper strength, one that lives beneath the noise of your thoughts. It's the strength that grows through action, through movement, through doing what you said you'd do long after the feeling is gone. That's how you train your identity. That's how you become someone unstoppable. Stop waiting for the perfect version of yourself to show up. That version is built through daily effort, not imagined into existence. If you're tired of starting over, stop quitting. Stay with it. Stay through the hard days, the slow days, the days that feel like nothing's working. Because those are the days that shape you most. Those are the days that teach you patience, grit, and emotional endurance. And emotional endurance is the real game changer. It's the ability to keep going when your mind wants to escape, to sit with discomfort and move forward anyway, to choose growth over relief. You already have everything you need to begin. You don't need another plan. You don't need more motivation. You need to act, to move, to do one small thing today that aligns with the life you say you want. Let that one action lead to the next. Stack your wins. protect your momentum. And when doubt creeps in, remind yourself, this isn't about doing everything. It's about doing something, and doing it with intention. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are in the process of becoming. Keep going, because the life you want is already waiting for the version of you who doesn't stop. Progress isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It lives in the quiet decisions no one applauds. It's in waking up early when you'd rather stay in bed, in choosing water over sugar, in turning your phone off so you can focus. These are the moments that build a new life. Not the highlights, not the breakthroughs, but the small wins stacked on top of each other until they become unstoppable momentum. Every time you follow through, you're not just building discipline. You're proving to yourself that you are capable of change, that your past doesn't define your potential, that you are in control now. You'll be tempted to underestimate small actions. You'll tell yourself it doesn't matter, that skipping today won't make a difference. But that voice isn't you. It's fear disguised as logic. And every time you listen to it, you give away your power. You reinforce the identity you're trying to escape. But when you do the small thing anyway, even when it feels insignificant, you disrupt the cycle. You weaken the old identity and give life to the new one. That's how lasting change begins, not in grand gestures, but in microscopic shifts made consistently. You don't rise by accident, you rise by design. And that design is forged in your daily rituals, not once in a while, not when it's easy, but every single day. The moment you understand this, everything changes, because now you're not chasing a goal, you're becoming a person who achieves goals by default. That shift is everything. It's not about forcing outcomes anymore. It's about building the internal structure that naturally leads to the outcomes. It's about making success inevitable by aligning your habits with your future, not your comfort. There's no secret hack, no shortcut, just you and your choices. And every choice is a vote for the person you want to become. You don't need to get it all right today. You just need to win the next moment, and then the one after that. It's a game of momentum, not perfection, of direction, not speed. So even if it feels slow, even if it feels invisible, keep going. Your consistency is building something powerful beneath the surface, something that can't be taken away, something no one can give you and no one can steal. You're not here to repeat the same year over and over. You're here to grow, to evolve, to stretch into the version of yourself that's been buried under excuses and hesitation. That version isn't found. It's built, it's earned, through small acts of courage over and over again, through a refusal to quit, even when no one is watching, through an unshakable belief that you are meant for more, and a relentless commitment to proving it true. This is the work, and this is your moment. Decide who you want to be, and then back it up with action. Quiet, steady, powerful action. The kind that rewrites your future from the inside out. You were not made to live on autopilot. You were not built to wake up, go through the motions, and repeat days that don't ignite something in your soul. Deep down you feel it, that quiet ache that says there's more to become, more to give, more to rise into. But you can't unlock that life by staying the same. You can't evolve by holding on to habits that keep you small. If your daily actions are aligned with survival, you will never touch your potential. To create change, you must become intentional with everything. Your time, your energy, your thoughts, your choices. This is where most people get stuck. They want different results, but they won't change their rituals. They want more peace, but won't stop scrolling. They want more purpose, but won't cut out distractions. They want self-respect, but keep breaking promises to themselves. And every time they do, their belief erodes. Not all at once, but little by little, they begin to trust themselves less. Until one day they look in the mirror and barely recognize who they've become. That's the danger of drifting. It's not dramatic, it's subtle, and that's what makes it powerful. You reverse this by reclaiming your focus, by choosing clarity over chaos. It starts with asking yourself what matters and having the courage to align your day with that answer, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially then. Because comfort is not the goal, growth is. And growth asks you to stretch, to act differently, to think differently, to live with intention, even when the world pressures you to numb out. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. You just have to interrupt the old cycle with one bold move. That's all it takes to change direction. Your energy is not unlimited. You cannot afford to waste it on things that drain you, distract you, or diminish your vision. Every day you are either feeding your future or feeding your fears. There is no in between. That's why boundaries aren't selfish. They're survival. That's why routines aren't boring. They're structure. That's why discipline isn't punishment. It's freedom. The freedom to look in the mirror and know you're becoming who you were meant to be, not who the world programmed you to be. This is your responsibility. No one's coming to rescue you from distraction. No one is going to hand you the life you crave. It will be built, brick by brick, choice by choice. You already have what it takes. What's missing is not capability, it's commitment. And commitment doesn't scream. It whispers every time you choose what serves you over what sedates you. Every time you honor your priorities instead of your impulses. Every time you say yes to the hard path because you know it leads somewhere better. That's how you rise. That's how you win. And once you begin, you'll never want to go back. Because nothing feels better than knowing you are finally living life on your terms. Fully awake, fully present, fully powerful. You don't need more time. You need more honesty. Honesty about where your energy goes. Honesty about what you're avoiding. Honesty about the excuses you've allowed to take root and shape your days. Every single day you are shaping your life through what you allow, what you tolerate, and what you reinforce. And if you're not shaping it with intention, you're letting it shape you by default. That's where the drift begins. Not with one big decision, but with small, repeated choices that pull you away from your power. You already know the truth. Deep down, you feel when you're out of alignment. You feel it when you say yes to things that don't matter. You feel it when you abandon the commitments you made to yourself. That quiet voice inside you is not weakness. It's wisdom. And the more you ignore it, the harder life feels. Not because you're broken, but because you're betraying what you already know. That the real you, the focused you, the strong you, the disciplined you, is waiting. Not someday. Right now. Change doesn't come from pressure. It comes from clarity. From saying, I've had enough. From no longer negotiating with the part of you that seeks comfort over growth. You do not need to be extreme. You just need to be consistent. Small choices repeated daily stack into transformation. You don't have to prove anything to anyone else. You just have to prove to yourself that you are done giving your power away. Because every time you let distraction win, every time you choose ease over effort, you're teaching your mind that your goals don't matter, and eventually, your mind stops believing you. But the opposite is also true. Every time you choose alignment, even in the smallest way, you rebuild trust with yourself. You strengthen the bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. And that trust becomes unshakable. It becomes the foundation of your confidence. Confidence doesn't come from words. It comes from evidence. Evidence that you show up. Evidence that you follow through. Evidence that you keep going when it's hard, because you've decided your growth is not negotiable. This is how you change your identity. Not by waiting for motivation. Not by waiting for the perfect plan. But by taking responsibility for what you repeat. If your life doesn't reflect what you want, change what you repeat. That's the root. That's the leverage point. And that's where your power lives. In your patterns. In your habits. In your ability to interrupt the old and choose the new, again and again, until it becomes who you are. You are not meant to settle into a life that drains you. You are meant to rise. And you rise through your habits. You rise through your choices. You rise every time you say, I refuse to live one more day below my potential. That is your moment. And the more often you seize it, the more unstoppable you become. Not someday. Now. Every time you hesitate, a part of you fades. Not because you're weak, but because hesitation is a habit that trains the brain to retreat instead of rise. Every second you spend doubting yourself is a second lost to fear that doesn't belong in your future. Your mind learns through repetition, and if you keep feeding it hesitation, it will default to uncertainty. But you weren't built for hesitation. You were built for movement. And every time you act in spite of the fear, you send a message to your nervous system, I am safe to grow. I am safe to change. It starts with a shift in identity. You stop being the person who needs confidence to begin. You become the person who begins, and through that action builds the confidence. Most people never cross that line. They wait, they plan, they dream, but they never step, and they die with their potential still inside them. Not because they weren't capable, but because they kept thinking they needed to feel ready. But readiness is a trap. The brain will always find a reason to delay when the unknown is involved, and the only way to override that cycle is to interrupt it with courage. Courage isn't loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, it's consistent. It's the voice that says, just take the next step, not the entire staircase, just the next step. That's how you build momentum. That's how you retrain the brain to lean into challenge instead of running from it. Action becomes the therapy, discipline becomes the medicine, and repetition becomes the transformation. You don't break old patterns by fighting them. You break them by replacing them, by becoming too busy with growth to entertain limitation. There is a part of you that already knows this, a part that's tired of shrinking, tired of waiting, tired of living on pause. That part of you isn't wrong. That part of you is trying to save you, not from danger but from regret. Regret is what happens when your soul remembers who you were supposed to become, and realizes you didn't choose it. But today, you still have time. Today, you still have breath. And if you're breathing, you're not done. You're just beginning. No one is coming to do it for you. And that's not something to fear, that's your power. That's the moment you take your life back. When you stop outsourcing your worth, your happiness, your purpose. When you stop needing permission to grow. The only permission you've ever needed is your own. The green light is inside you. The key is already in your hand. And the moment you turn it, everything begins to shift. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. You don't need a sign. You need a decision. One bold decision to no longer live at war with yourself. One honest moment to say, I am done waiting for who I already am to show up. I'm stepping forward now, fully, unapologetically, relentlessly. Change begins the moment you stop negotiating with your excuses. Every time you justify staying the same, you strengthen the chains that hold you back. And those chains, they're built from words like someday, maybe, and later. But there is no later. There is no perfect timing. There is only now. The person you want to become doesn't exist in the future. They are created through the decisions you make in this exact moment. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Every excuse you make is an agreement you've signed with comfort. And comfort is the silent killer of greatness. Your brain craves patterns because patterns feel safe. But safety is not the goal. Growth is. And growth only happens when you're willing to lean into discomfort. When you stop choosing what's easy and start choosing what's right. The right choice often feels like resistance. But that resistance, that's your edge. That's where transformation begins. Most people back away when they feel it. You're not most people. You're here because something deep inside you refuses to settle. And that fire will never go out, not until you answer it with action. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't as wide as it seems. It's built from small moments of hesitation, tiny acts of self-betrayal, and silent decisions to delay what your soul is screaming for. But the same way the gap was built, it can be closed. One honest choice at a time. One moment of integrity. One act of courage. You don't need to climb the mountain today. You just need to take a step, and then another, and then another. Eventually the view will change, not because the world shifted, but because you did. You are not weak for struggling. You are strong because you haven't given up. Every day you show up, even in silence, even in doubt, you are building a foundation no one can take from you. That quiet resilience, that's power. That's what most never see, but it's what defines those who rise. You rise by refusing to accept the version of you that fear created. You rise by rewriting the story, by choosing action over avoidance, by deciding that progress matters more than perfection. And when it gets hard, and it will, you don't retreat. You reconnect. You remember why you started. You remember what's at stake, your future, your peace, your power. That's the cost of staying the same, and it's too high. You've already paid enough in wasted time and self-doubt, in broken promises to yourself. That ends here. That ends now. No more shrinking. No more stalling. No more betraying who you were meant to be. You are allowed to begin again. Not because you failed, but because you're finally ready to stop hiding behind potential. Potential is just possibility without action. You've carried it long enough. Now it's time to live it. Show yourself what happens when you stop running and start rising. The life you crave is not a dream. It's a decision. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are not too late. Those are lies your fear whispers to keep you silent, small, and stagnant. But there's something deeper in you, something that aches every time you hesitate. That ache is your calling. That tension is your truth trying to break through the noise. You've spent enough time denying your own power, dimming your own light, doubting your own worth. But you cannot unsee what your heart already knows. You were not meant to live life on mute. You were not born to simply exist. You were made to move, to rise, to rebuild what life tried to break. The pain you've endured is not your identity. It's your initiation. Every scar has shaped your strength. Every fall has taught your feet how to rise again. You don't owe the world a version of you that feels safe. You owe yourself the version that feels true. And truth isn't always comfortable. It often demands that you let go of people who drain you, of patterns that weaken you, of beliefs that never belonged to you. It requires you to burn down the lie that you are not enough and rebuild from the ashes of who you were never allowed to be. You will not become unshakable by avoiding struggle. You will become unshakable by standing in it and choosing who you will be within it. When you stop running from your challenges and face them with conviction, they lose their power. When you stop needing permission and start granting yourself freedom, life begins to bend, not because the world suddenly makes it easier, but because your courage makes you stronger. Confidence is not something you wait to feel. It is something you build through action, repetition, and relentless self-respect. This journey is not about speed. It's about direction. You don't need to sprint into perfection. You need to walk with purpose, no matter how slow. Every step forward, no matter how uncertain, is still a step out of who you were and into who you were always meant to become. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your transformation. Your growth is not up for debate. Your healing is not for their comfort. This is your season to reclaim everything you once handed over in fear. Your voice, your energy, your vision, your standards. You are not defined by who you were. You are defined by what you decide now. If you want to rise, rise. If you want to change, change. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for the fear to vanish. You will never silence the fear until you outgrow the version of you that believes in it. This is the moment you shift. Not because it's easy, because it's necessary. Because your peace demands it. Your future depends on it. Your soul deserves it. Stand up, breathe deep, and walk forward. You are not here to be the same. You are here to be free. You've spent too long trying to shrink yourself to fit into places you've already outgrown. Too long explaining your worth to people who were never ready to understand it. The weight you've been carrying was never yours to begin with. The guilt, the shame, the self-doubt. They were all handed to you by a world that feared your fire. But your fire was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to burn through everything false, everything fragile, everything forced. You are not meant to blend in. You are meant to break patterns, break silence, and break through. When you finally choose yourself, the world may resist. Let it. Their discomfort is not your problem. Your responsibility is to your growth, your peace, and your purpose. Stop negotiating with people who benefit from your silence. Stop lowering your standards to make others feel secure. The cost of acceptance should never be your authenticity. The cost of belonging should never be your truth. When you begin to honor yourself without apology, you reclaim every piece of power you once gave away just to feel loved. You're not chasing validation anymore. You're choosing alignment. You're not settling for convenience. You're rising for conviction. Every decision you make now must echo one message. I will no longer abandon myself. Not to be liked, not to be chosen, not to avoid conflict. You must become the one who shows up when everyone else disappears. The one who keeps going when everything screams to quit. The one who refuses to let pain define them. This is how you build unshakable inner strength. Not by wishing for less resistance, but by becoming the person who grows stronger within it. Your power isn't loud. It doesn't beg to be seen. It exists in how you hold your ground, even when your voice shakes. It lives in how you set boundaries and mean them. It shows up when you walk away without needing to explain why. That kind of power is rare. And once you tap into it, you'll never go back to begging for breadcrumbs of respect. You'll stop tolerating relationships that drain you. You'll stop giving your energy to things that don't grow you. You'll stop accepting anything less than what fuels your evolution. The discomfort you feel right now is the tension between who you've been and who you're becoming. Let it stretch you. Let it rebuild you. You are not here to repeat cycles. You are here to shatter them. And that kind of shift requires discipline. It demands that you choose long-term peace over temporary approval. It demands that you act in alignment with your higher self, even when your current self wants to run. The transformation you crave will not come wrapped in comfort. It will come wrapped in challenge, in solitude, in stillness, and you will rise through all of it, not because you were lucky, but because you finally remembered who you are and chose never to forget it again. Growth isn't always graceful. Sometimes it's brutal. Sometimes it feels like everything is falling apart when, in truth, everything is falling into place. The unraveling isn't punishment, it's preparation. The storm you're facing isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to strip away everything that no longer serves you, everything that limits you, everything that delays the life you were born to build. Pain isn't the enemy, stagnation is. And if it hurts right now, it means you are alive in the process of becoming. It means your old self is shedding. Let it go. You don't owe the past version of you an explanation. You owe your future the truth. That truth might require detaching from old identities. It might mean walking away from people who only know how to love you small. It might mean disappointing others to remain loyal to yourself. That's not selfish. That's sacred. That's how real alignment begins. By deciding that your peace matters more than your image, that your growth matters more than your comfort, that your soul matters more than someone else's expectations. You've been conditioned to think that survival is strength, but true strength is found in transformation. In breaking the cycles you were told to normalize, in choosing to feel rather than numb, in choosing to heal rather than perform. You weren't born to play roles. You were born to lead yourself back home, to the most unfiltered, undeniable version of who you are. And when you get there, when you finally see yourself with clear eyes and no mask, you'll realize that you never needed fixing. You just needed remembering. The power you're building isn't in becoming someone else. It's in reclaiming who you've always been beneath the noise. Beneath the fears, the labels, the pressure. Underneath it all is a version of you that is clear, conscious, and committed. A version that isn't shaken by rejection because it no longer seeks permission. A version that stops people-pleasing because it's too rooted in purpose to bend for temporary approval. That is the version that changes everything, not because it's louder, but because it's honest. Because it no longer trades authenticity for acceptance. And now, everything changes when you stop waiting for the right time, waiting for someone to believe in you, waiting for the fear to leave. It won't, but neither will your power. Action births clarity. Courage doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It means you move anyway. And every time you do, you build trust with yourself. Every time you show up, even trembling, you rise. That is how you grow, not by feeling ready, but by acting ready. The shift begins the moment you stop looking outside for answers and start listening inward. Because everything you're searching for already lives inside of you, untouched, unshaken, and waiting. And once you choose it, you will never go back to shrinking. You will only rise. You will only build. You will only become. When you stop shrinking, the world around you starts to respond differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, carry yourself with a quiet certainty that doesn't beg to be noticed. It simply commands respect. That shift is not arrogance. That is ownership. That is the result of choosing yourself day after day, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's unfamiliar. You don't need to prove your worth. You need to own your presence. And when you do, you stop chasing things that were never meant for someone who knows their value. Validation loses its grip. Comparison fades. Approval no longer dictates your pace. Because once you become grounded in your identity, you realize the noise outside of you holds no real power. It only echoes what you secretly believe. And when you upgrade that inner belief, everything else follows. You are not here to audition for your own life. You are here to embody it fully, to stand in it completely, to become so aligned with your truth that anything misaligned cannot stay. The clearer you become, the more the chaos reveals itself, and that clarity is not always comfortable, but it is necessary. You will outgrow people, environments, and even parts of yourself. That is not failure. That is expansion. Let go without guilt. Move forward without explanation. You are not abandoning anyone by evolving. You are just choosing not to abandon yourself. And that choice will feel radical in a world that benefits from your confusion. But your power is not in being accepted by everyone. It is in being true to yourself, even if it means standing alone. When you do that, you build a life based on truth, not illusion. Discipline becomes freedom. Boundaries become protection. Silence becomes strength. Because the more you know yourself, the less you need to explain yourself, the less you react. The more you respond with intention, the more your energy speaks before you do. That is real transformation, not a loud display, but a quiet conviction that cannot be shaken. You are no longer moved by temporary opinions. You are anchored in lasting principles. You don't need to be the loudest in the room when you are the most grounded. Every time you honor your boundaries, you affirm your worth. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you rebuild your trust. Every time you choose what aligns, even when it's hard, you reinforce the foundation of your future. And that foundation will not crack, because it's built from something deeper than motivation. It's built from identity, from alignment, from inner clarity. You don't need perfect conditions. You need consistent decisions. The kind that reflect who you are becoming, not who you've been. Keep building from that place. Keep choosing from that place. Because when your decisions match your destiny, you become unstoppable. Not because life got easier, but because you became stronger. And that strength is the beginning of everything. Real strength is not loud. It's not about dominating a room or proving a point. Real strength is built in silence, when no one is watching. And you choose discipline over comfort, growth over familiarity, alignment over approval. It's forged in those invisible moments, where you make the hard decision to rise again, to hold your standard, to protect your peace even when it feels unnatural. The world will test your boundaries, your patience, your resolve. That is not a sign to retreat. It's a sign to rise higher within, to go deeper into who you truly are, to stop negotiating with mediocrity and start standing firm in your intention. You do not owe the world your exhaustion. You owe yourself your energy. You owe your vision your devotion. And you owe your growth your full attention. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you say no to something that builds you. You are not here to survive by shrinking. You are here to expand by choosing. And that choice begins with clarity. When you become clear on what matters, distractions lose their power. Toxic cycles can no longer hold you. You don't entertain what used to entice you. You don't settle for what you used to tolerate. Because growth changes what you're available for. You are no longer available for chaos disguised as connection. No longer available for expectations rooted in fear. no longer available for a life that doesn't feel like yours. This is the shift. The moment you stop abandoning your truth to make others comfortable. The moment you stop apologizing for outgrowing environments that kept you small. The moment you stop explaining your evolution to people, committed to misunderstanding it. You are not too much. You are not too intense. You are simply waking up to who you are. And that awakening will disrupt everything not built for your future. Let it. Let it burn what no longer fits. Let it remove what no longer fuels. Let it strip away the fake comfort that kept you caged. Because on the other side of that discomfort is freedom. Not the kind handed to you, the kind you claim. The kind you build, choice by choice, boundary by boundary, standard by standard. You don't rise because you're never afraid. You rise because you refuse to let fear dictate your path. You refuse to let old wounds write your future. You refuse to let temporary emotions create permanent outcomes. Your new season is not found in seeking more. It's found in shedding what no longer aligns. In releasing the noise, the clutter, the pressure to be anything other than who you are. You are not here to impress. You are here to express. You are here to embody clarity, to walk with integrity, to move from intention. You are not chasing a version of success defined by others. You are building a life that reflects your truth. That is your power. That is your peace. And that is where your real transformation begins. You weren't born to blend in with what breaks you. You weren't created to mold yourself into boxes that suffocate your potential. The discomfort you feel when you're out of alignment isn't punishment. It's a signal, a call to rise, a call to step out of the illusion of fitting in and into the reality of becoming whole. Every time you suppress your truth to maintain peace, you create internal war, and that war eats away at your confidence, your clarity, your conviction. But the moment you decide that your peace matters more than their approval, you begin to reclaim your life. You stop explaining your light to those addicted to your shadows. You stop shrinking your voice to make room for noise. You stop negotiating your worth for validation that was never yours to chase. Your growth is not about being liked. It's about being honest. It's about being whole. It's about walking in a way that honors your boundaries, even when it's misunderstood. Especially when it's misunderstood. Because strength isn't loud, but it's unshakable. It's the quiet knowing that you're moving in alignment, even if no one claps. It's the unbreakable trust you build with yourself when you stop abandoning your needs for temporary comfort. It's the discipline to stay rooted when everything around you demands reaction. You're not here to be reactive. You're here to be intentional. You're here to be grounded. And when you stop performing and start living, you unlock a kind of freedom the world can't offer. Most people will never understand the level of courage it takes to choose healing over hiding, to choose silence over pleasing, to choose growth over comfort. But you're not most people. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to understand yourself so deeply that external confusion doesn't shake your internal certainty. That's how you build peace. Not by controlling what others see, but by becoming unshakable in what you know. That's how you rise without chaos. That's how you glow without noise. That's how you lead yourself forward when nothing feels certain but your own fire. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't need consensus to choose your healing. You don't need validation to walk away from what drains you. There is power in stillness. There is strength in boundaries. There is clarity in solitude. When you stop resisting the pull toward your higher self, everything changes. Not because the world gets easier, but because you get stronger. Because you're no longer fragmented. You're no longer chasing. You're no longer pretending. You're simply aligned. Aligned with your values. Aligned with your standards. Aligned with the life you know you're meant to live. And that alignment creates momentum, not frantic external movement, but deep internal power. The kind of power that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. The kind of power that transforms not just what you do, but who you are becoming. That's how real transformation begins, from within, by choosing to rise without noise.